And when everyone's super... No one will be.
Which character's your favorite? Mine is the middle-aged, somewhat overweight white guy. I really like seeing myself being represented. Hey! Anyone getting a Lord of the Rings vibe? Geez, what is it with these drawing videos and those movies? I despise the crossguard lightsaber designs plaguing Star Wars now. Hey kids, we're doing something new! Ish. Full disclosure, I have not and will not read anything coming out of the High Republic. This video is meant purely to examine character development art that I've seen meant to promote this publishing initiative and get people excited. Disclaimer! 1. Because there are undoubtedly going to be people that don't actually watch the whole video, and just skip to the end to criticize the deliberately rough art and call me a There's never been anything wrong with wanting to create new characters imbued with choices, outlooks, or lifestyles contrary to the norms you see. In fact, on some levels, I applaud this attempt. It's kind of a relief that they didn't just take the original trilogy, swap the genders and preferences, try to retell the same old story, and stand back and wait for people to applaud them. I'm also astounded that they actually have alien characters, since their movies thus far make it seem like they hate them. 2. I hate drawing on my computer. 3. These are going to be really quick and dirty drawings, so you can't criticize the quality. Well, you probably can, and you probably will. But I'm basically doing a teaching type setting similar to the 7 years of school that I went through for this type of thing. Only you won't have a mountain of student loan debt at the end. You're welcome. 4. I did almost no research on these characters, so feel free in the comments to let me know if I got anything right about the actual characters or their personality traits. Now then, if you've been watching the channel, especially recently, you'll know that I do not like this High Republic crap. From comics to concept art, everything looks absolutely boring to me, and every image I see feels like I'm watching a flamingo bark. The internet has become replete with criticism for the property, and rightly so, but I've had people messaging me recently to do a redraw of some of the characters, and I've mostly ignored it because honestly what Lucasfilm has set out to accomplish, they nailed it. We need a gay character. Done. They even named him is gay. How do you improve on a character design that so completely accomplishes what apparently is the one trait they wish to focus on? To be fair, concept art like this doesn't always tell you more than what the character looks like, but you should be able to glean some information about them based on their costume or accessories. Even body position. I had to go online to find out that he's a pilot. I already got that he's gay. So anyway, rather than just screeching that I hate it for the sake of clicks and views, I thought I'd do a video examining some of the available artwork and rethinking some of the choices that were made. So let's start with Ram Ramajam. Ram Ramajam. Oh, sorry. Ram Jam-O-Ram. I think in one of our live streams I asked if this character was a boy or a girl. Both of these characters could go either way in my brain. I still don't have an answer. Was that the point? The writers don't want you to know? Are they trying to appeal to everyone by not making any declarative statements? Kind of like the middle of the road PG-13 of character design? Both of these characters are done just generic enough that I have no idea. Ram, even the name is absolutely no help. Looks like a 17-year-old boy with a top knot here to me. Here's a note for you kids. Write this down. It's important. It'll be on the test later. Know your audience. If these books are aimed at young adults, children, the attention span of seemingly every successive generation seems to be getting shorter. George knew this back in '83 and said as much. So you want to hook your audience with vivid imagery that grabs you and slaps you in the face from the start. Imagine those characters in something like that. It'd be like cocaine to a 7-year-old. Oh, but Sean, these books are meant for kids and young adults. Dude! Even kids' books that came out when I was a kid wanted to have covers that lived up to the Star Wars saga and name. Even after that, when they started publishing the Young Jedi Knight series, they still kept up the trend by hiring artists like Dave Dorman. Anyway, back to Jamalami. Immediately, I have a hard time with Jedi being fat. Unless they're like an alien whose species is just naturally shaped that way, like a Hutt or something. Even as a kid, I associated the Jedi as being in line with the Shaolin monks and samurai, a lifestyle of training and discipline. Does the character just love to eat? Is that supposed to be a charming personality trait? As a fat guy, I know what it's like getting winded taking the stairs, let alone chasing after someone or running for my life. Are they gonna have to call on the Force constantly just to be able to keep up physically with someone 30 pounds lighter? The second thing I notice is this person is filthy. Was she rolling around in pig One of two things is true about this character at this point. Either they are a mechanic, the goggles being a giveaway, and their outfit is covered in grease. Even I use the goggles as a mechanic's cue in my sci-fi comic. Or they're a pilot, and I guess they crashed. I rode a motorcycle for 6 years. Unless you have some kind of broken line in the engine, you don't get covered in crap just cruising through the air. So let's go with the idea that she is a mechanic. Like I said, I don't buy the idea of a fat Jedi. It's as nonsensical as fat superheroes, unless your superpower makes you a Unless your superpower makes a schlub like you and I... Unless your superpower makes a that's really hard to say. Makes a schlub like you and I into a god, but does nothing to transform your body. When you design characters, you're constantly asking yourself questions. Where is she from? Does she live in the temple if she's not a Jedi? Does she live underneath the temple? Could she still serve the Jedi, maybe as a support crew that keeps the ships flying? What if she has a mentor? What if you built up how awesome it is to be in the Jedi Mechanics Corps? And what an honor that is. Why does she have a lightsaber? You could say that she would see the benefits of having one to use as a tool. It could be a short Shoto saber. For a long time, I've often thought, why wouldn't you just carry something like that in case you get stuck in a cargo compartment or some other desperate situation, like a trash compactor? Wouldn't a mechanic recognize the benefits of having a tool that could cut through practically anything, especially if you need to jury-rig some parts to fit on the fly and you have to shave 1.5 inches off of some piping? I don't know if the lightsabers are still an achievement for a Jedi during their training in Disney's version of Star Wars, but maybe that could be an interesting character thing that she manages to make a small one. To keep the uniqueness of the lightsaber, ideally, it would have problems because she's not a Jedi. Oh, or it would be like an approximation of a lightsaber. Some other device that in spirit does the same thing, but to a lesser degree. Anywho, in the spirit of being a mechanic, I started giving her coveralls with spatters of grease. That's just kind of the general starting point anyone would go with this type of character. You can add more details here and there and try to switch up the design of the outfit overall. I didn't like the arm, so I figured I'd really try to sell it to the audience that she's a mechanic, hence the giant wrench. And there you go, I like the idea of the Jedi Mechanics Corps being a thing. Again, I have no idea what this character's true purpose is. If she is a mechanic, that'd be great to get a bit more visual information indicating such a thing. Even I find myself sometimes being guilty of not selling a character enough, like with my cartoony sci-fi comic, and Crumb. He's a mechanic, hence the goggles, and has one big multi-wrench that you can't see here. But I'd like to add more stuff later on to sell his mechanical nature. Maybe a bandolier of like small wrenches. At the same time, you don't want to go too overboard with it. So let's jump to this guy. You see it, don't you? You get the impression that the most important thing about this character is that he's gay. Isn't that insulting? As I mentioned, I had to glimpse at Wikipedia to see that he's a pilot. So if you were a designer, why wouldn't you run with that? It's really strange to me that he doesn't have a gun. Practically every character in Star Wars has a gun, even in the concept art. Or a weapon of some kind. You know, because of the wars part. Even though I know you don't want to be pro-war. So stupid. Maybe it's a residual thing from World War II, of which Star Wars was originally heavily influenced. When I think of a pilot, I think of a heroic kind of nobleness of character. So for this, I puffed out his chest a little bit and put 2 fists on his hips. There should be a confidence lent to a character that's called on to fly around 100,000 tons of starship, potentially outrun bad guys, and still be able to land it safely. I actually really like the shoulder pads they have going on here. It's a standard Star Wars kind of design element. Makes me think of Dash Rendar. But look at these straps. They provide the perfect place for a gun, like an old detective movie. 2 guns, even. I think they're called shoulder holsters. Like I said, Star Wars was originally influenced by World War II, in as much as that they would take old equipment and repurpose it into props for the movies. Things like Han Solo's broom-handled Mauser or the Stormtrooper rifles. Both real guns that got converted, and which end up lending a weight and believability to the objects, which further immerses your audience in the story. The prequels were a real letdown on the props department in this way for me. I believe almost everything was an original design, except for the Gillette shaver in Anakin's basket game thing. I didn't have to change a whole lot with this guy. I have an old skull cap from the war, so I gave him that, like a Snoopy cap that the astronauts wear. Also, I gave him some leg straps as kind of a callback to the X-Wing pilot uniforms like Luke wears, which in itself is a callback to World War II. And I really just changed his body language. Body language shows attitude. Attitude shows character. You could say a lot just with how a character carries himself. This guy is hitting a nightclub. This guy looks like someone you can trust and is confident enough to get the job done. He is ready to fly a ship and is experienced and wise enough to pack a weapon in a universe whose defining trait is in the title of the series. Star Wars. Oh, you know what else? He's also gay. But that should never be the end-all defining quality of a character. Where you put your junk does not make you a hero, your actions do. And being accountable, taking responsibility and doing the right thing, not just for yourself. I can't believe that I have to say that in this day and age. Can I ask you guys, are they trying to turn Star Wars into Harry Potter? Or is it Game of Thrones? Houses made it onto their list. Both are the dumbest f***ing ideas ever. I f***ing hate Game of Thrones and what it's done to entertainment writing. Nothing good ever comes from trying to copy the success of a different franchise in this manner, especially when you're a franchise that's defined Hollywood for decades. First Twilight, now Harry Potter or Thrones. Yes, creativity dies in the boardroom. My biggest problem with this entire effort, and I do stress effort, is it's so boring, which is hilariously terrible when you consider that diversity was so important to them, so important that it made their list twice, that they made 11 characters that all basically look the same. Variety is the spice of life. Long, long ago, in an age when Star Wars was good, it was filled with characters of different walks of life coming together to complete a goal. It's been present in practically every incarnation of the series for 40 years. You might complain that that's formulaic, but it works and it's been repeated in thousands of other stories and genres. Each character is important because they all offer a different ability to contribute to the mission. Han was the savvy smuggler, Leia was the surly diplomat, Luke the optimistic youth with growing power, Chewbacca the muscle, R2-D2 the mechanic, and 3PO the translator. Okay, let's try to connect two different thoughts here. So maybe you're one of those actual fans that's been with Star Wars for a long time and you actually read the expanded universe, hypothetically. And you say, hey Sean, this is no different than when Dark Horse used to do those Jedi Council comics. Look at this. Oh, sure. However, I actually feel like this is a shortcoming of George in the prequels as well. He started giving us some weird Jedi like Yariel Proof there, probably just to show off different aliens that could be Jedi and break up what the Council looked like. But it wasn't until the comics and other media that creators started taking the different designs and using them to some advantage in the stories. Like these guys. The absolute most effective one, however, was obviously Kit Fisto in the superior Clone Wars microseries. I don't think I had any clue that he was aquatic until I saw that, and it was an awesome segment. So combining, let's say you're working on a garbage idea, relative, and you know that Star Wars has always worked best with an ensemble cast of different characters, but at the same time you want to focus your story on the Jedi and life before the original trilogy. It would work to your advantage if you started designing characters and building your team around creatures and characters who have unique physical attributes. And I don't mean skin color. I mean aliens! Have one or two human characters that the audience can relate to, but the other characters could be built in ways beneficial to the missions at hand. You could even start pulling from the hundreds upon hundreds of Star Wars species available to you from across the galaxy. So with that in mind, let's get completely crazy here. What if you had a desert planet mission, because this is Star Wars and obviously you're gonna end up seeing Tatooine at some point. Bull. And the planet is too harsh for most species. So you send a Weequay Jedi Knight because their thick leathery skin can stand up to such a harsh environment. See what I'm saying here? The right species, the right man, or alien, for the job. You guys remember that Bomar monk in Return of the Jedi? It was on screen for like 3 seconds, but in the expanded universe they had their own lore. If I remember correctly, they were monks that would sometimes remove their brains and put them in jars. Free of the worldly distractions of their other senses, they could focus all their attention on contemplating the universe. For those monks that weren't quite that enlightened, they had these robot spider bodies that they could move around in. What if a Bomar, is it Bomar or Biomar? I always read it as Biomar as a kid. We'll go with Bomar. What if a Bomar monk happened to be discovered as being strong with the Force and was recruited to become a Jedi? What kind of stories could you tell of a brain and a robot body trying to reconcile whatever his previous religion was with the philosophies of the Jedi? Would he regret his choice to remove his brain knowing now what his destiny held for him? You could have a built-in vocalizer and he could have brief conversations with another master or student in downtimes. You could take him on missions and have him infiltrate places others couldn't because he's an amazing climber and his droid body could allow him to jump long distances regardless of Force powers. What if he had lightsaber attachments built into his body in different places, like in this arm, or his legs, the tip of his legs? What if he could curl his legs and head and butt underneath and do a crazy spin flip with the lightsabers ignited? I like the idea of doing a story with a character that is starting to bridge the gap between sentient and droid and blurring the lines in Star Wars. You could even send that guy on a mission with the Weequay to go to the harsh desert that also happens to be pretty mountainous, and his spider body could work to his advantage as he climbed. Oh man, he could like twist his body all around and do some crazy moves too because he's not bound by his bipedal physical form. Remember Watto? I liked Watto. Would it not be advantageous to have a Jedi that could fly? especially if the location you're going to is similar to Cloud City in any way. What if one of these little guys was a Jedi? Are they the same as the vermin in this picture? What if you had to use him on a mission covertly to infiltrate a ship? What if he's too small to make a lightsaber, so he carries a kind of metal sword on his back? It would look like a nail or a needle to normal-sized people. Maybe that's too much like mouse guard or whatever. But you can already see the benefits of using a variety of shaped and sized characters to tell a variety of stories. What if the High Republic was based around the concept of showing the different types of missions that Jedi went on? Like thinking of the whole publishing experience as if you're sitting on the Jedi Council and each offshoot of the publishing push was sending Jedi on missions suited to their skill sets. Honestly, these designs are kinda silly, but rarely do you ever do one drawing of a character and just go with it. You could even combine some of these characters to create something new. Case in point, let's take their Trandoshan character. A weird choice since what I know of the Trandoshans, they're naturally vicious creatures, but I guess it's similar to using Barables. Barables? Barables. So I guess from their comic, this guy's missing an arm. Can Trandoshans regrow limbs like lizards with tails? I can't remember. Regardless, in a universe where every Jedi seems to lose a limb, unless you're Rey, why would you choose not to have a bitchin' robot arm? Especially if you could adjust it to make it stronger? That seems like that would be a benefit in combat. Or if you're stuck somewhere and need to rip open some metal or something. Robot arms are awesome. My wife has even said if I ever lost a hand, she would seriously question whether or not it was on purpose. So let's try to combine two ideas. What if we take our Bomar monk guy and this Trandoshan missing a limb guy? What if the accident where he lost an arm was so much more severe? What if he was on a mission and was caught in like some kind of industrial accident? What if he was able to fend off death with the Force as his body started to be slowly eaten away by some kind of chemical? Eventually they got him into a pod, and then into a medical bay, where the droids were forced to remove damaged tissues, which were infecting healthy tissues, to the point where a good quarter of his body was removed, including his head. They could save his life and most of his body, but his brain would be placed in a jar, and he'd have to speak through a droid vocalizer and hear with auditory receptors. They were able to replace his missing arm with a robot one. I was looking at the C-3PO on my desk here for reference. Stories immediately spring from that kind of a setup, regardless if you think the idea is good or not. Trandoshans love the hunt and the taste of fresh meat from a kill. How would the philosophy of the Jedi help him overcome everything he had lost? Would he feel more at one with the Force and the universe now that he had to give up so much physically? I really like the look of this guy, and fleshing him out more, he could look really cool. And imagine what a bitchin' action figure he'd make. Yes, the brain in the jar type character has been done, but concept art is all about asking questions and trying out different combinations. In the end, you will never get it exactly right the first time, but the more sketches you do and more combinations you try out, the more questions you'll ask, and the more interesting your characters and their stories will become. It should never just be, she's green and she's a Jedi. She's white and she's a Jedi. She's black and a Jedi. They need unique stories and challenges to overcome. On a related note, I've never said you can't have female characters and still make them appealing or interesting to boys, because we all possess the human superpower called empathy. And a well-written story will make you relate. Alien. But it really comes back to know your audience. Disney originally bought Marvel and Star Wars because they struggled to appeal to a boy audience, and every single article written at that time knew it. In a surprising turn of events, Lucasfilm would rather not utilize that built-in audience, thus defeating the entire purpose of buying the property in the first place. Besides boring character design, one of the biggest crimes of this whole effort, I think, is in marketing. I kinda gave it away earlier, but anyone remember the art they used to put out for Knights of the Old Republic games? These images are a million times more exciting than anything I've seen come out of the High Republic, and they immediately make me want to learn more. At the end of the day, the writer is going to come up with what they will, but as a concept artist, your job should be to generate as many more ideas as possible to help improve the story and ask questions of the character that the writer didn't think of. I said it before, creativity dies in the boardroom. Wow. I think that's it. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it, leave me a comment if you want. Even if it's negative, it still helps the channel. Let me know what you guys think. What other things could they have done to get you interested in these stories? And if you want to check out some stuff from my own forthcoming crowdfunded cartoony sci-fi comic series, Smacked in the Head, you can do that on Instagram. Link in the description below. Alright guys, have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
This is but a taste of the dark side.